Hello everyone! Today's joke of the day is, why do seagulls fly over the sea? Stay tuned to find out. Our learning target for our lesson today is I can solve two-step equations. So let's look at a few two-step equations. With this first one, we have 6x minus 2 is equal to 22. Well, the first thing we want to do when solving our equations is draw our railroad tracks in so we can keep track of what's on both sides. Okay, then the next thing we want to do is isolate our variable. Okay, so here we have our variable x. I'll highlight that here, right? We have x, and we want to get that on a side all by itself. That's what isolate means, okay? So our first step here is going to be to add 2 to both sides, because the inverse of subtracting 2 is adding 2. Okay, because then we have 6x minus 2, and then we're adding 2, so that gives us 0. So we just have 6x left on the right-hand side is equal to 24. And we add 2 to the other side to keep the equation balanced and keep its equality. Okay, now the next thing is we have this 6x, and there we can think of that as, like, we put a little dot in there, that's multiplying. Okay, 6 times x, well, the inverse of multiplication is division. So to undo multiplication, we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. Then 6 divided by 6 gives us 1, so we have like 1 times x, but we don't really need that 1 because 1 times any number is just that number. Okay, and x is just a number, so we have that is equal to 24 divided by 6, which is 4. Okay, we get x is 4, and then we always want to check our answer to make sure that that's correct. So we do 6 times 4, so we substitute that 4 back in for x into our equation. 6 times 4 minus 2 is equal to 22. Well, we do 6 times 4, that's 24. Minus 2 is equal to 22, and then 24 minus 2 is 22, which is equal to 22. Good. So we checked our answer. X is equal to 4 is correct. Okay, let's look at this one here. Now we can first draw railroad tracks again. And usually we start by adding or subtracting any numbers. But in this case, we have this x minus 3 up here in the numerator is being divided by 4. All of that's being divided by 4. So the first thing we actually want to do is get rid of that division by 4 by multiplying by 4 on both sides. Okay, so we end up with 4 divided by 4 gives us 1. So we end up with x minus 3 is equal to negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Okay, and now the inverse of subtraction is addition, so we're going to add 3 on both sides, because then we end up with x plus 0, which is just x, is equal to negative 8 plus 3, which is negative 5. And we could check our answer again, but I'm not going to do that for this one. You know how to do that, so you can check it and make sure that I'm right. All right, let's look at this next one. We'll draw on our railroad tracks. And now in this case, we have t divided by 3, and then we're subtracting 2. So the first thing we want to do is add 2 on both sides. Okay, so we have t divided by 3 is then equal to negative 5. And now we have t divided by 3, the inverse of division is multiplication. So we'll multiply by 3 on both sides to get t is equal to negative 15. Just a few more. This one's a little bit trickier. It doesn't look like a two-step equation, but it actually is. Now we have this 2 over here, and there's no sign in front of it there, which means that it's positive, okay? And to get rid of a positive 2, we want to subtract. So we are actually going to subtract by 2 on both sides, okay? Now here's where we have to be really careful. We took this positive 2 minus 2, so that gives us a 0. But we still have this negative r, or minus r. Okay, so we can get rid of that 0 here. Don't really need that, but we are subtracting r. Okay, so we still have a negative r, and then we have 6 minus 2. This is where I see a lot of mistakes. Okay, so let's not make that mistake. Now we have a negative r. We can think of this as maybe like negative 1r. Okay, so to get rid of a negative 1 that we're multiplying there, right? We would divide by negative 1 on both sides. Okay, so we end up with r is equal to 4 divided by negative 1, which is negative 4. And actually this one, let's check our answer to make sure that we did it right with the negative. So we'll end up with, if we will substitute that back in, we get 2 minus a negative 4 is equal to 6. Okay, if we have minus a negative 4, we can chop, and that makes it plus 4. So 2 plus 4 gives us 6, which is equal to 6. So we know that we did that one correctly. It's always good to check, especially when we're doing problems that have negatives. Okay, so here we'll draw on our railroad tracks. We have negative 3x plus 4. Okay, so we will, the inverse of addition is going to be subtraction. So we'll subtract 4 on both sides. Get negative 3x is equal to negative 5 minus 4 is a negative 9. And now we have this negative 3x, so we're going to divide by negative 3 on both sides. Okay, that gives us x is equal to, well, negative 9 divided by a negative 3. Negative divided by negative makes a positive, so we have 9 divided by 3, and that is giving us 3. X is equal to 3. All right, let's look at one more like this. Draw on our railroad tracks. We're adding 2, so we want to subtract by 2 on both sides. So we end up with 3p is equal to negative 1 minus 2, which is negative 3. Now we have 3 times p. The inverse of multiplication is division, so we will divide by 3 on both sides to end up with p is equal to negative 3 divided by 3, which gives us a negative 1. Okay. Now let's look at a few word problems. Aaliyah had some candy to give to her 4 children. She first took 10 pieces for herself and then evenly divided the rest among her children. Each child received 2 pieces. With how many pieces did she start? All right, now this is a little tricky, so let's go through and let's highlight the important information. Aaliyah had some candy. Okay, so we know she had some candy. That's going to be our variable. So I'm going to call that C. She had some candy. We don't know how much. And it says to give to her 4 children. She first took 10 pieces for herself. So she took, that's not what I wanted to do. She first took 10 pieces, okay? Well, taking 10 away from however much she had C, right, that's going to be subtracting. She took 10 pieces. So we're subtracting 10, okay, for herself, and then evenly divided. Oh, that's a good keyword, so I'm going to highlight that one. She divided, okay, and then we can write in our little division symbol. The rest among her children, which we know were 4, so we're going to say divided by 4. And then it says each child received 2 pieces. So after we do all of this, received, okay, that's like our equals sign. So it equals 2. Okay, so let's go back and rewrite this all to figure out how many pieces she started with. Okay, so she had some candy, right, which we agreed was C. Okay, we can call it any letter that we want. It's just a variable. And she first took 10 pieces. So we're taking C minus 10 for herself, and then evenly divided the rest among her children. So then we're taking that number, C minus 10, and dividing that whole thing by 4. And then each child receives 2 pieces, so we know that that is equal to 2. So there's our equation that we wrote, and now we can solve it to figure out how much she started with. So we'll draw on our railroad tracks. All right, C minus 10 is all being divided by 4, so we want to multiply by 4 on both sides. Okay, that's the inverse of division. Those cancel out, so then we end up with C minus 10 is equal to, well, 2 times 4 is 8. Okay, and then we will add 10 to both sides here to get C is equal to 18. Okay, and we can always check our answer, so let's do that. Let's go back and let's substitute that 18 back in where C was. So we'll take 18 minus 10 divided by 4 and see if that is equal to 2. 18 minus 10, that is 8. Dividing that by 4 equal to 2, and we end up with 2 is equal to 2. So we know that she started with 18 pieces of candy. So it should be 18 pieces. Okay. We're going to skip this next one with the bus and go down to the one about a magazine. Okay, so if you bought a magazine for $4 and then you bought 8 erasers, you spent a total of $28. How much did each eraser cost? Well, you bought a magazine for $4. We know you spent $4 on the magazine. Plus, right, because you also bought 8 erasers. 8 times whatever the cost of the eraser was. Well, we'll just say 8E because we don't know what the eraser cost is. You spent a total of $28. Okay, that word total, that's a key word. We know that that means equals 28. Okay, so now we can solve to figure out how much each eraser cost. So we'll draw on our railroad tracks. First thing we want to do, we have this positive 4 here, right? There's nothing there, so we know it's positive 4. So we will subtract 4 on both sides. And we end up with 8e is equal to 24. Okay? And then we want to divide by 8 to get e is equal to $3. Okay? So each eraser was $3. All right, so joke of the day. Why do seagulls fly over the sea? Well, because if they flew over the bay, then they would be bagels. Thanks for watching and have a great day.